So when I see this, the urgency culture and frazzled mind, it's probably like, okay, what does that really mean? I kind of catch phrases, but I think what I want to talk about is today, not only our kids, but I think all of us feel this sense of kind of a constant, we don't have everything done, we aren't caught up, we're constantly getting in a barrage of texts, emails, phone calls. There's always something more to do, and we find ourselves in less and less downtime. So what I want to talk about is how that impacts our brain. And I'm going to start with a disclaimer. I'm well aware of the many benefits of technology. And we see even out here in the lobby the amazing things that we couldn't have done 10 years ago. So it isn't about it not being a great benefit. It's here to stay. It's a mechanical thing. And if nothing else, I want you to think about maybe how do we take this device that we're all so connected to in every way and make it less prominent in some very important aspects of our life. So we know, we're going to go through some of this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Sleep patterns is pretty easy. If we're on it, we're not sleeping, melatonin's not released. Those kind of things are pretty easy, but what I want us to go through is what we see so much of today is this frazzled attention span. We're seeing huge problems with learning, self-esteem, interpersonal skills at every level. So I want to talk a little bit more specifically about why. Why is that? I think we do a good job in this country of stopping things once we start to educate people. So, like smoking. We kept telling people don't smoke, but then it didn't really take hold until we actually gave them the science. Like what's nicotine doing? What's a black lung look like? What are the cancer rates? So hopefully that's what I want you to take away from today. Okay. This is a big intimidating slide, but I wanted to be up here to get across the point of this is what is happening in our brain from the earliest ages throughout our lifetime. These are all the different things that need to be going on for us to be highly functioning. So if we look at this, and then each one of these categories can be further broken into pieces. And I think that we don't give our brains enough credit when we start to talk about ADD or ADHD or any kind of even cognitive pieces. If you can't do any of these, we're going to see it in how you behave and then in your mental health. Your mental health is going to take a toll because you're going to somehow feel you're inadequate. So that's just really to get across the point that there's an incredible amount going on at any given time in our brain. So the first thing that comes up is, and you can go ahead and go the whole thing, is multitasking. So we all know about the multitasking, and I think we can say it's all increased since we have phones and we're driving with phones and taking phone calls, all that stuff. But I think it is a myth because the brain is meant not to multitask. It's meant to do one task at a time. It is amazing at doing a variety of things, but every time we go there, we seriously lower the actual power of the brain. So again, where does that leave us? A little frazzled, a little distracted, a little sort of on edge, if you will. Shoulders rolled in a hurry, whatever that piece is, it's a little unsettled. And I think, we really have tried to pride ourselves, I think particularly in our culture, women pride themselves on doing more at once than any, we all could say, my husband can only do one thing at a time, whatever, right? So we really pride ourselves on multitasking. I know I do, but then even the other day, my daughter said, I was on the phone with her, my computer's in front of me, and she says, "You're not listening, are you?" I was like, actually, I'm not. I have no idea what you just said to me, right? So I think that's just an important reminder about multitasking. You can go to the next one. And if we need, if we don't know it ourselves, I think it's always important to have the science. I like the actual facts behind it. So if we're in a conversation or we're trying to process something, in the adult brain, you're going to take in around 7 words. That doesn't mean the thes, the ands, but the actual bigger words come into your brain at about 7 words a minute. So then if we're doing, and then we have to put it back out, just simply repeat what was said, we lower it a little bit. But if we're multitasking and we have to send it back out in any kind of coherent way or any kind of a articulate response, we drop to almost half. We're down at 4 words a minute. So that is that's almost half efficiency of your brain when you're multitasking and you actually need to respond in an articulate way. So I think that's a pretty alarming statistic. Okay, you can go on the next one. And this shows us exactly how significant it is, because I think that what anybody would have predicted, including myself, is that teenagers would have lower recall and would have less ability to process this way, that they wouldn't be as good at multitaskers. And while we never want to encourage them to multitask, they actually could do a better job than we did. And this shows at a pretty significant level, because their brain is hardwired at that stage for novelty seeking and risk taking, right? So that's what's coursing through their brain. The GABA, all of that stuff is different and allows them to process better and multitask better than it does the rest of us, which I don't think we would have predicted that, but that's an important reminder, because I don't think you're going to tell your teens to multitask. It's just another way to look at it. I think it's pretty clear. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones. So I think what's important to take away here is the social media's addictive allure. I'm not going to suggest that it is the same as cocaine. So cocaine's intensity and consequences are obviously very different, but I feel kind of weird talking about MRIs with a group of people. But anyway, my read on this is it's lighting up the same part of the brain as cocaine. Social media hits the exact same part of the brain, and for all practical purposes, it tells us something pretty significant is going on there. So social media's allure there is the dopamine pump. And again, with some of this stuff, I'm not trying to be super technical, so the dopamine pump, when we have likes or we get notifications or the screen's constantly changing and we're watching TikTok or a reel, it's hitting our brain, a little more dopamine is released. So our bodies, and that feels good. So we stay connected. But what happens is over time, the body feels the overstimulation. So its response, again, as an amazing machine, is to downregulate. So it starts to withhold the dopamine. And then what happens? We start to feel, with lower dopamine levels, we feel a little depressed and a little anxious. And we start to feel that disconnect, which is really the most important part of why we don't always want to do the social media, because we feel inadequate. We start to get the message that we're not part of it, that somehow we've got to keep going to get more and more. And that leaves us in this really frazzled state of mind, because we can't quite get our levels up. And what we are seeing is over time, this change in the dopamine pump is actually rewiring brains. If it's in the youth ages, the time when our brains are developing, we see that the brain actually, it's like any addiction, needs more and more in order to get to a baseline level. That's why we're seeing a lot of anxiety and depression throughout the society. Okay. This one is, again, we see so often, and it is more, I think, appropriate for younger people, but not necessarily. the idea that quantity over quality is what we're really looking for. The quantity of friends and likes, getting all the way